Some of you guys are going to absolutely rinse me and hate me for what I am about to say, but I'm going to say it with my chest. On this platform, I want to voice my opinion, and this is my opinion on Dillon Danis joining the UFC. Now, what has happened, guys, is Dillon Danis has claimed that he is set to have a meeting with the UFC following his release from Bellator so that he can join the UFC. Now, is this true? Is this not true? It's hard to say. You have to take everything that Dillon Danis says with a pinch of salt for sure. I'm going to discuss now whether I think that this signing would be a good signing for the UFC or not. And you guys are going to absolutely hate me. Oh God. I think it's actually an amazing signing and the UFC should do it. Okay. Why do I think this is a good signing? Why on God's green earth do I think that Dillon Danis should join the UFC? Number one, the guy is amazing at jiu-jitsu, and I know he's not fought in a lot of time, but we can't deny the accolades that he has in jiu-jitsu, right? He has won many jiu-jitsu championships, and we cannot deny the statistics. He is a great jiu-jitsu practitioner, and for me it would be really interesting to see if he can take what he's done in jiu-jitsu and make it work in the octagon against the very best. There is no doubt he is one of the most talented jiu-jitsu guys around, even though he hasn't fought for a long time. And I believe it would be actually really interesting to see him compete with some really good jiu-jitsu practitioners in the UFC and fight some strikers and see how he handles himself. Do I think he'll win and become a champion? That's for another video. But I think it would be very interesting to see how he does. The second reason I believe this would be a very good signing for the UFC is that the guy sells tickets, right? The guy puts bums on seats, right? And there's no denying that. The way he does it can be controversial, but he does do it. I think that if you looked at some of the top 15 fighters in the UFC, he'd sell more tickets than them. He'd put more bums on seats. That's my opinion. I also believe that if you took some Bellator champions and bought them and brought them over to the UFC, that he would still sell more tickets than them. We've got to remember that this is a business. The UFC is a business, and as much as people want to see the best fighters compete, sometimes fighters that aren't so good that sell more tickets get signed instead. So I believe that signing him would actually be beneficial because he would sell tickets. Now, do I believe that Dana White believes this? Yes, I do. I think that he will see the commercial value in Dillon Danis and probably sign him. I do think this is going to happen. I believe that Dana White will look at the numbers that Dillon Danis did for the Logan Paul fight, as much as it was a terrible spectacle. He'll see those numbers and be like, oh, I could do with some of those numbers. I could do with some of those bums on seats. And he'll see Dillon Danis more as a commercial purchase, if that makes sense. More of a commercial purchase rather than a high-skilled purchase. And what I mean by that is he's a free agent. He'll sign Dillon Danis not because of his skills per se, but more because of the fact that he sells tickets and puts bums on seats. But the guy, again, is really good at jiu-jitsu. His striking is awful. Probably not as bad as a Paddy Pimblett or Ben Askren, but it's still relatively bad. And I'd like to see if he can adapt his game so that his jiu-jitsu shines through, because if he can get his jiu-jitsu to work in the UFC, I think he'd actually be quite a feared opponent. I think a lot of people would struggle with him. I mean, this is the guy that took Gordon Ryan to a decision in a jiu-jitsu championship. And Gordon Ryan, as we know, is the best of all time, people say, at jiu-jitsu. I can't remember the last time he lost. The guy is, when I see people talk about him, they say how advanced he is, how he is levels above other people, Gordon Ryan. And for Dillon Danis to take him to a decision is so impressive. It's impressive. You've got to say it's impressive. You cannot deny it is. So this is why I believe that Dillon Danis actually would be quite a good signing for the UFC. I've heard that they're also looking at Michael Venom Page, and I think that's something that was inevitable to happen, the signing of Michael Venom Page. I'd also like to see it happen just because, again, of his popularity, his style of fighting is so unique. And there's so many benefits to having a guy like Michael Venom Page in your roster. Even if he doesn't challenge for the championships, I believe that Michael Venom Page would be one of those guys that maybe won't win a championship, but would be like a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson type fighter where he does sell a lot of tickets. A lot of people go to watch him just because of his key attributes and the way he fights. I think that that Michael Venom Page signing will be inevitable. And I am mentioning Michael Venom Page in this video because it was said that Dillon Danis would sign for the UFC and so would Michael Venom Page. So I thought I'd string those two things together really. But this video is about Dillon Danis. I think he'll be joining the UFC. I think it's a good signing. You guys probably don't think it's going to be a good signing. I'm glad you guys listened to me and let me speak. Let me say my piece. And you've also got to remember that Conor McGregor could put in a good word. I don't know how much power he has, but Conor McGregor could pull a few strings here as well and get Dillon Danis signed for the UFC. He could put in a good word and say, look at the amount of tickets he sold and do it for me, Dana, come on, just sign him for me. He's been with me since the start. He could use his persuasive tactics to get Dillon Danis signed as well. There's no doubt about it. So that's another factor that I didn't actually think I was going to put in the video, but I will put in the video, is the McGregor influence that he has on Dana White and the UFC. That could hold powerful, it could be powerful. So yeah, guys, thank you guys for watching. Do you think Dillon Danis should sign for the UFC? Do you think that Michael Venom Page should sign for the UFC? Let me know in the comments below, and as usual, thank you for watching.